and welcome to the final episode of the SAP Tech Talks Podcast show in 2025. I'm your host, Hanna Klein, the SAP Tech Talks community coordinator and the founder of the SAP Tech Talks Podcast show. And today we have a very special guest joining us, Marcelo da Costa, a true leader in the SAP and enterprise technology space, and someone who has been at the heart of NEORIS for over 2 decades. Marcelo, thanks so much for being here.
Hannah, thank you so much for inviting me and thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're always welcome. So, would you like to present yourself to our audience, probably share a few words about yourself?
Yes, well, my name is Marcelo da Costa. I've been in the company for many years. If I put together, NEORIS and now EPAM, it's been a journey of almost 25 years and more than 30 years in the technology space. I'm originally from Brazil, as you probably can tell by my accent, but I've been living in the US for the past 24 years.
Actually, I would say that it's quite difficult for me to differentiate that you are not from US originally. I don't hear the accent.
Thank you, Hannah.
So let's start by exploring your personal journey. Can you tell us more about your very first steps in the IT industry and what inspired you to pursue a career in technology?
Sure. I would say that, my first steps, they weren't actually 100% related to technology. And I grew up always liking computers. I took actually a basic programming course. Was back in the 80s. But I was always interested in trends and understanding how technology could bring more value to my daily life, both personally and professionally. I graduated from economics and began my career working at investment bank. So it was, very different from technology, but always with a client focus, right? After a few years, I received an invitation to work at a startup. That was in the late 90s. And we were developing e-commerce, websites, internet solutions, but for large enterprises. The company actually was acquired by NEORIS in the early 2000s. And I had the opportunity to move from Brazil to the United States, to the US. And then I continued to follow in, technology as, a critical role, professional services actually playing, a role of helping clients on the journey of becoming, much more effective and better organizations. So, in a nutshell, I was inspired of working with the segment that combined technology and people. I was always curious about technology, how technology would impact people in business, right? And then, of course, after the acquisition of NEORIS by EPAM and the acceleration of the technology adoption overall, right? I felt just very fortunate to be in a key industry that's going and undergoing rapid transformation.
Actually, you have already mentioned how you became a part of NEORIS company, yeah? And I wanted to ask you what has kept you motivated to stay and grow together with NEORIS for so many years?
Well, I guess the first thought that comes to my mind is possibilities, right? When you're in a new company, entering a new market, the opportunities and possibilities, they are almost endless, in my opinion. So you need to have much more like an entrepreneurial spirit, keep an open mind. And I would say, be willing to take risks and learn quickly from mistakes. That's what I think, it motivated me to be in the company for that many years. When I think about my career and the career I built before joining EPAM, I see that the real learning came from the experiences that I just mentioned. So working on different areas with different people, different cultures, that motivated me to keep growing and striving to evolve professionally.
And can you please tell us more about some pivotal moments that have shaped your career?
Well, pivotal moments, looking back, I would say that an important part of that was the opportunity to work in different roles and in roles that involved regional or global exposure, right? So I was always working with colleagues and clients in different geographies. I think this opened my mind to truly understand the impact and importance of diversity, the word diversity. That was one thing. Another important thing was the chance to work with different leaders and in different areas. So that also helped me to think a lot about my career. The good news is that I always had the freedom in the opportunity to contribute and to take, different leading roles as I was actually shaping my career. And when you work with people, you are constantly learning and transforming yourself, right? So the key for me was always to understand, number one, that you can never succeed alone. I think teamwork is always much more important than just thinking about yourself, right? Second thing is that no one can ever know everything. So, being open to listening, learning, changing, I think it's always critical for your career. And I participated in many successful projects, I can tell you, but actually the projects that failed, they were the ones who helped me to evolve more quickly as a professional, always with the goal of, continuing to improve.
Yes, exactly. We should always learn from our mistakes, and to my mind, we learn even better from them.
Agree.
And you mentioned that you had an opportunity to participate in many projects. Can you please tell us more about the most exciting project or initiative that you've been part of?
Sure. I mean, over the last 3 to 4 years, I have been leading the SAP practice in Latin America. So it is an interesting project. I would consider that a project, right? From the perspective of understanding the fast pace, how companies are changing, and I think the role that SAP projects play in that context. Just to give an example, the past few years, they have been very challenging in almost every industry. They're going to transformation. They are leveraging SAP more and more, their cloud platform, or modernizing their architecture, learning how to use, artificial intelligence tools. So, the SAP itself, it's, I would say it's in the top of the ERP. It's in the top of the agenda for, any C-level people, CEOs, CIOs, CFOs. So the conversations are becoming much more intense. Challenge is, to keep adding value while attracting and retaining, some of the best talents. This is how our business works. So I would say that this is one of the most exciting projects I've been part of, and a very complex one as well.
Yeah, right now everything is evolving very, very rapidly. So, and right now let's talk more about transformation. I mean, this new chapter that NEORIS has entered with the acquisition by EPAM in 2024. This is a significant moment for the company and its people. And in your opinion, what does this new chapter as EPAM NEORIS mean for the company's culture and clients?
That's a very good question, Hannah. I think, and myself, I always had a very optimistic view of this new chapter, right? I think NEORIS has always had an excellent relationship with many clients in the region. We always had like a strong presence, but we have never had the same strength or influence, I would say, or the capacity to innovate, for the matter, to compete against, some of the major consulting firms in the market, right? Now, with EPAM's arrival, I think the conversations with clients are changing very quickly, right? They understand that we can add much more value now being part of this, larger organization. We're bringing to the market new solutions, a much more, I would say, solid approach, leveraging not only technology, but the industry expertise as well, right? So this is very, very relevant, in my opinion, if you wanted to continue to build a long-term relationship with clients. I think especially in Latin America, clients are benefiting a lot, I would say short-term with this new stage. And of course, I think EPAM's strategic position in the region will also benefit their global clients. So it's a win-win situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And you have already touched this topic, but can you please provide more details about new opportunities and synergies that you're excited about that have appeared after EPAM's acquisition of NEORIS?
From the cultural standpoint, in terms of the experience of SAP practice, of employees, I would say there's a very high level of excitement right now. We feel like we have access to the main market tools, accelerators, training methodologies. better enablers for our project managers. So, I think that the opportunities for collaborations and for sharing information about projects and best practices are very clear examples of that, right? I think, the mindset is now shifting towards where we have to contribute the most in terms of, projects within, different geographies, but always with the idea of bringing the best technology in the first place.
So, and right now, let's talk more about your career reflections and lessons. We'll know that every career has its ups and downs, and let's reflect on some of the lessons that you have learned along the way and the people who have helped shape your journey. So, looking back, what is the biggest challenge you have faced in your career, and how did you overcome it?
Okay, well, as I mentioned earlier, I think we're in a very highly dynamic and constantly changing market, right? So one of the main challenges I have faced, and I would say I continue to face, Hannah, is staying motivated to understand new trends and adapt quickly. I think, the biggest mistake or risk, for that matter, for a professional, especially in our field, in my view, right, is feeling comfortable with the status quo. I think, we must always think about how to change and adapt quickly. The market dynamics is changing too, right? And if we don't do this, we cannot compete. So I like to draw an analogy with the world of sports. I like sports a lot. So if you see the evolution of equipment, for instance, right? This is just as important as the evolution of athletes and the way they prepare themselves. So a couple of examples that come to my mind. Think about the Formula One cars. If you think the evolution over the last 10 years, in my opinion, it has been extraordinary, right? But if the drivers are not preparing themselves, I would say physically and mentally, right, for that evolution, the results would not be achievable. They would not be able to do what they're doing today. The same thing can be said about tennis players, right? I grew up in the 80s, so I saw, Borg or Chris Evert. They won Grand Slams with playing with wooden rackets, right, in their time. But that doesn't mean that if they play today with the new technologies, with the new rackets or carbon fiber, they will have the same level of efficiency, right? Physical preparation is key. It has changed a lot. Nutrition has changed. The time to analyze, their opponents or the tactics using data. All of this is important to gain a competitive advantage. So if we come back to technology, to our world, technology world, we always have to seek the evolution of tools and methodologies. If you do that, combining with the best talent, I believe that's where you can achieve the best results.
That's right. And the comparison between innovations in IT and other spheres is absolutely correct. Nothing stays the same, and we should always be able to adapt. And actually, speaking of the people you admire, is there any role model or some mentor who had a significant impact on your professional journey? Probably some sportsman.
a lot of sportsmen. A lot of athletes, because I like the way they think, the mentality. And when we talk about athletes, we also talk about not only individual athletes, but in team sports you learn a lot, right? A lot. But thinking about our field, I think first of all, I was definitely fortunate to work with a lot of excellent leaders throughout my career. Eventually, these leaders, they also played a role of influencers and mentors for me. For instance, when I started in the technology field in Brazil at a startup, I was lucky enough to work closely with some of the company's partners. Some of them, they remain good friends. So it was easier for me to better understand the value and the actions of some of these executives, especially the ones with a entrepreneurial mindset. The same happened when I began working in NEORIS, and I had the privilege of working with professionals who came from several backgrounds, most of them coming from very top and major companies, as well as leaders like Martin Mendes himself. He's the current CEO of EPAM now for Ibero, Latin America after the EPAM acquisition. He demonstrates a unique capability to build teams, to motivate people, to manage. He knows a lot how to manage companies. the company's P&L, focusing always on culture and delivering results to clients. So he was also a big inspiration. And then lastly, I think, I think I've learned a lot from my wife as well. Since she moved to the US, she's very successful executive. She works in the financial industry. And through her, I've been able to observe and bring, into my daily routine lessons on how to handle pressure better or apply discipline, be more efficient in different situations that require quick decision making and multitasking. I always think that a woman in general do this, better and more naturally than men. They know how to multitask. So, a big inspiration there as well.
I would say that your wife will be absolutely happy to hear it.
Yeah, hopefully I'm going to be getting some brownie points with her. But it's true, huh? It's true. It's everything that I'm mentioning. I mean, it is an inspiration for me too.
So, and you have already mentioned that the tech industry never stands still. And as we look ahead, I'm curious about your perspective on what is next and how young professionals can prepare for the future. So my question is, what technological advancements should business leaders pay close attention to in the next 5 years?
This is the $1 million question or $1 billion question. Well, I would start with saying that, of course, needless to say, AI and ERP modernization, in my opinion, are becoming, essential, not only because they give companies the ability to make things faster, to act smarter, make productive decisions, but I think that modern ERP platforms and enhance the combination, right? The ERP platforms, but enhanced with AI, they can be extremely important. I'm talking about, better forecasting, better accurate planning, quicker responses. These are all critical capabilities that any company will be needing to increase their competitiveness. This is super important. So, again, if the companies, if they don't modernize their ERP and adopt AI, they will struggle, right? It's going to be very hard to keep up with competitors. It's going to be very hard to innovate faster. I think organizations, they need to act now so they can improve that. So I would say, the combination of ERP modernization with AI, I think this is what we need to pay close attention in the next 5 years.
Yeah. And you mentioned that this is kind of advice for companies, I would say. And what about young professionals who are only going to start their career in the tech industry? What advice would you give to those people?
Wow, this is
one more $1 million question, yeah.
Right, another very tricky and important question, but I can see myself talking to my to my kids, right? And I don't know, perhaps my main advice, it's first of all, don't stop thinking and learning, right? Stay open to change. I think today's professionals are very, very different from those who existed 10 years ago. And I also think that this gap will only continue to grow with the next generations. It's incredible how this gap is getting smaller and smaller. And now with the AI tools availability, there's always a natural risk of people thinking less and questioning less, right? I guess access to real-time information, a lot of rich data. Sometimes it can play against people. They lose motivation to challenge their status quo. It's much easier to get information than it was in the past, right? So for me, a key differentiator, at least in our field, will be to remain curious, bold enough to understand how to use these tools, of course, because if you don't know how to use them, you're not going to be that impacted. And again, not being afraid to change. I think the people that are not afraid to change will be the most successful people in the future.
Yeah, great. So, and we have covered the professional part, of your life. And let's talk now about your life outside of work and how you find balance between work and personal life. So, can you please tell us more about hobbies and activities you enjoy that help you recharge your batteries and stay creative?
That's a good question too, and I have several. I would say not only hobbies but activities that I enjoy. Right, I enjoy first of all outdoor activities. I think being a lot in the office or in meetings with clients, and now with Zoom meetings, team meetings. I think the time that you can get outside of being in front of your computer, it's helpful, right? And I also enjoy playing sports and listening to music. The other thing, as a family man, I have a 19-year-old daughter and a 17-year-old son. So since they were born, I've tried to spend most of my free time with them, right? It changes a little bit the perspective when you have kids or raising kids. So we're spending more time with them as well. So I like, especially with my son, because he's kind of an athlete too. So we play tennis, paddle. I mean, we go to a lot of sports events. So that's part of what I do, what I like. My daughter is living now in New Orleans for college. That's where she lives and studies. So I when I go there to visit her, I also take some time to enjoy a good music, going to a jazz or a blues concert. That's something that relaxes me a lot, right? And in general, I think being in the US, I think one of the great advantages for someone who lives here and likes to be outdoors is that, I mean, we have the best of both worlds. The summer, we can enjoy, the beach, going for a swim. And then in the winter, in the US, you have also the opportunity to go to the mountains and, to see a different aspect of the weather. So it's good. I guess my answer would be, if I can be outdoors most of the time outside of work, I think that's what helps me to recharge.
And right now I have a question like out of the sudden, because you told me a lot about your hobbies. And right now I'd like to find out your three favorite in terms of music band or music singer, your favorite place where you always enjoy being for your holiday, for example, and your favorite art or sport, like top three.
Okay, well, it's a tough question because, I mean, in terms of sports, now that I'm getting a little bit older, I'm enjoying more also to watch sports, right? So sports venues or sports events. I had, I would say, the opportunity to go to many important events. I love to watch tennis. I had the opportunity to go to some of the Grand Slams, US Open a couple of times, Roland Garros in Paris. It was great. Had the chance to see my home country playing the World Cup also. So it was a great experience. I've been to many other important events. Living in Miami too, we are a very competitive sports city when it comes to basketball and football. But at the end of the day, I also like to, go to the small venues. I watched my son playing soccer, competitive soccer, since he was 6, 7 years old. So that's I enjoyed a lot going also to the small tournaments and being close to other kids and to my son. So that was great. As far as music goes, and I mean, I think I also developed like a taste of listening a little bit of everything. So I also been to many concerts. I mean, growing up in the '80s, I liked to listen to rock and roll. But lately, as I mentioned to you, going to visit my daughter or going to other places, like New Orleans or Nashville, you start getting a taste of other types of music, country music. It's nice, jazz. One of my favorite artists, I mean, John Mayer. I've seen his concert in many venues. Again, going to sometimes the smaller the venue or the more private the concert is, the better it is as well. I mean, it's like to go to nice stadium, big concerts, but it's also nice to go to small venues with local artists. I could spend, hours and hours talking about that. This is a topic that I like.
Yeah, I do understand what you mean, because at these smaller venues, you have real connection to the artist.
Absolutely, it's much more intimate, right? The setting, and you can definitely get closer to the artists and understand also their craft. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So, and as far as I see, you're a person of a lot of interest in terms of professional life and personal also. And I'd like to find out, how do you manage to balance the demand of a global leadership role with your personal life and well-being?
Oof, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, with technology advancing, connectivity pretty much available anywhere, it's becoming, more difficult to balance work and personal life. What I try to do is to prioritize my time and respect the importance of dedicating space for things outside of work, especially during, weekends and holidays. I try as best as I can, but without a doubt, this is one of the biggest challenges for executives who have a global role and people that work across different time zones and countries. The other thing is, as I was evolving in my career, I was also learning better to delegate and to trust the team. I think this is also a very important exercise. That's a dynamic that requires a lot of attention. But without that, it's almost impossible to have a balance between your personal and your professional life.
So, and to wrap things up, I have a special secret round of questions for you. These are quite small, short questions, but they always inspire some great thoughts. So I'd like to hear some more personal insights about you, those little things that inspire you and maybe even surprise us. So the first question is, what book, podcast, or resource that has influenced you and your thinking recently?
I've been listening to more and more podcasts, especially during my commute, since we're back in the office, and I have at least an hour and a half every day to come to the office in traffic, to and from work, right? So, and also when I'm traveling, I usually try to, instead of taking some books, I do some audiobooks and podcasts. So some, I don't know, interesting recommendation. There's a big list, right? But from my recently playlist, I would say, in terms of professional interest, would like to mention maybe a couple of podcasts. There's a podcast called Acquired, which is about deals, IPOs, companies, stories. So it's very interesting the way they put together that content. So that's definitely a recommendation. Well, one that it's I would say a classic. It's the Lex Friedman podcast. I mean, it's also very very interesting if you want to learn more about the trends in technology. There's a new podcast called the AI Daily Brief, which is very interesting too. It's all about AI, but they are very short briefs daily. And sometimes I like to listen to some of the interviews in the Joe Rogan channel. Sometimes he has some good people that he interviews with a lot of different perspectives in terms of technology, economy, or trends. And then, of course, because I'm working a lot with Latin America, I include some of the summaries of newspapers. I mean, there's some good news that does the summary of what's happening in countries like Mexico, Argentina, Brazil. So I try to listen to that. And on a personal note, talking about books or things that I like to also listen or to read. One which is definitely a recommendation, going back to music, right? There is an autobiography of David Grohl. I don't know if you're familiar, but David Grohl, he's the former drummer of Nirvana. He's the lead singer of Foo Fighters. He wrote a book called The Storyteller. And I would say that the audiobook is even better than the original book. So he narrates some of the stories of him, since he was starting to play as a musician, how he made his career to the phase that he was with the Nirvana, the breakthrough, and where he is today. It's a very interesting book or audiobook. And the other one that I would recommend, there's a book called Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, the actor. Very interesting perspective in terms of how he sees, opportunities in life. It's a good mix between his personal views and how this is impacting also his career.
Thank you. I think that right now we have some new items for our New Year resolution, like what we should read next year. Thank you. Another tricky question. If you could give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
A very good question. I think on the professional side, my advice to my young self would be, don't let yourself be, overly influenced by things you cannot control, right? Or by misguided decisions that you made. I mean, what matters most is what you learn and how you apply those lessons towards the future. So that would be an advice on the professional side. From the personal standpoint, I think it would definitely be, try to maximize the time. And I'm not talking about quantity, but I'm talking about quality, right? So try to maximize the time that you can spend, especially with your family, friends, your special ones. Well, now parents and grandparents, I feel, it's even more important. So make a better use of time. That would be my advice.
Thank you. And finally, what is a surprising fact about you that most colleagues don't know?
A surprising fact. This is a good one too. So let me throw this way. Well, I guess this is as a child, right? Growing up in Brazil, one thing that I always dreamt was to be, a professional surfer or skater. I grew up with a lot of kids. We used to go, to the beach every summer. So surf was a big thing for us, and we had skates. So I always loved sports and some of the, I would say, extreme sports in the past. Of course, as I got older, I start playing, more tennis or doing less extreme sports, like to do scuba diving, hiking. But I actually have very good memories of and stories, maybe a few scars also, when I was a kid, trying to, to do more of, the extreme sports, skate and surf at that time. Well, maybe another fact about me that I forgot to mention, I have also a very strong affinity for animals. I think also as a child, I spent a lot of time on my grandparents' farm. And I don't know, I appreciate it. I had a connection with them. Crazy because today I live in an apartment and I only have one dog, right? But I consider him kind of an integral part of my family. But I always loved animals. I think it's, the more time you spend with animals, I think your day, your life gets a little lighter. It's a good energy.
Yeah, I completely understand. I have a cat and I always adored animals. So, and yeah, right now you can breathe out. That's it. So, Marcelo, thanks a lot for sharing your journey, insights, and wisdom with us today.
No, thank you, Hannah. It was a pleasure. Actually, I really liked the conversation. It also helped me to, think a little bit back in time and see, things that are now put into perspective are very important to me and where I came from and the journey that I'm facing now. And happy to share some of that with you and some of the listeners. So thank you again for having me on this podcast.
You're always welcome. So, and thanks to you, to all our listeners for joining us on the SAP Tech Talks podcast show. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to our channel so you'll always be up to date about our latest content, and don't hesitate to share your feedback. We love hearing from you. Thank you for tuning in. Stay curious, keep learning, and until next time, goodbye.